Energy Radio, a podcast from CEM Engineering.
Welcome to Energy Radio. We're again live at the CBA Value of Biogas East, and I'm pleased to be joined by somebody I've known for a while and had a chance to do a project together, and I think the project has grown and morphed, and I don't know much about that, so I'm excited to hear about it. So I'm joined by Dave Green of Green Home Farms. Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Have you done a podcast before?
No, this is the first one.
It's first time, all right. Glad to, anyways, I won't say that, but anyways, why don't we start, Dave, just kind of introduce to the listeners kind of you and kind of the organization that you're part of, and then we'll kind of get into the backstory of the project and go from there.
Yeah, so basically a family farm, southwestern Ontario, kind of 10 minutes south of Stratford. We're dairy farmers, and when I kind of graduated college there, we were kind of interested in looking at the biogas industry. It's kind of been a slow growth for our system. We kind of looked at it kind of pre-fit contracts, and at that time we didn't feel it was feasible. We kind of backroad it and revisited in 2010, and kind of started the progress there with the first fit contracts not the first fit contracts, but fit contracts got released. And we kind of worked with Plan ET, and that's kind of where we met Matt. Did our first project, and we started power production in January 2013. Was the first time we were on the grid producing hydro.
Right.
We kind of started with a 250 kilowatt contract with the intentions of maybe later expanding it. Since then, we've expanded our whole operation, and we're now 500 kilowatts. And have been, I guess that was 2016, 17 is when the second engine kind of came online. So yeah, it's kind of been a bit of a learning. We're a mixed digester, so we're taking in organic waste as well as the manure from the dairy herd.
Lots to kind of unpack in more detail, but maybe starting with the farm itself, can you give a bit more kind of detail on the farm, what you're raising, how big, and maybe even a bit of the history? I think it's been in the family for a while.
So family farm. I'm the sixth generation on the farm.
Wow.
So 1843 is when the family came over. Scottish background, and on the home farm where the digester is, that's been in the family since we cleared the land, right?
Really? Wow. That's awesome.
So crown land that we got.
I remember your dad teasing me because as a Dutch Canadian, there's a lot of recent Dutch immigrants to your neck of the woods, and he was kind of tongue-in-cheek, of course, but kind of teasing me of all the Dutch came in, and they sold their quota back home in Holland, and they all have the nice farms, and we've been here for 100 plus years and working the land, but that's cool that it's 6 generations, and
absolutely.
Really
cool. Dairy, we do 250 cows. That's kind of been a slow progress of building up there. Did a big expansion when I kind of came home to farm. And since then we have a small beef operation and feedlot, as well as raised our own veal. And then through the digester side, we've kind of got into trucking organics and a little bit of that, and one of probably our keys to the success of our biogas plant has been formation of Cornerstone Renewables. So it's a group of 10 started with 10 digesters in the province that started working together to back each other up, to source the materials together, giving our customers a widespread solution, right from Eastern Ontario all the way to Windsor, and everywhere in between. So we have sites kind of spread out all over the province.
And so they source, and then they kind of, do they bring it to one area and separate it, or do they kind of point to point? Like, how do they kind of manage the logistics of that?
It's mostly coordination, right? So it's dealing with the suppliers, dealing with truckers. We have relationships with truckers. We have relationships direct with the source. All depends what the customers want, really. Usually it's more directing, right? So, and what we have found is a lot of your waste streams from your larger processing plants and things like that, it's advantageous to spread that stuff out for digester health. So one digester, if you get one source of material from a slaughterhouse, it could be very high in protein. Great stuff in smaller amounts. So if you can spread that out amongst 4 or 5 sites, depending, then two good things. Digesters love consistency.
Yeah.
So if somebody goes down, we've got backup that's going to get diverted. But
smart.
if the digester has never seen that type of material,
Right.
it's not going to like it, right? It's going to hiccup. Whereas it sees it, an increase of material isn't going to affect your process.
So how does that work? Do you get like a load from a processor and you go to multiple farms, or is it?
No, it's always
today you
live.
go there
Yeah.
to get today. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Okay. But and it's mostly food processing waste that you guys are taking, or is it other source separated organics, or generally speaking, what is the waste that you're taking?
Depending, we have two. We'll call it. There's the mixed digestion agricultural sites. We have 12 of those sites now.
Okay.
And then we are also two of our members of Cornerstone are we'll call it industrial sites.
Okay.
Those two can have depack facilities, so they're taking municipal SSOs or ICI waste there from industrial dirty stuff. So they're depackaging, getting the plastics out, then processing the organics. The agriculture side, we haven't got into that, the dirty waste. We are permitted to take some of that, and you can clean it up. That's maybe another step that be a centralized depack is something that we're looking at to better serve our customers, things like that. Yeah.
But the group, this Cornerstone group, it's how you talked about the quality of the stuff and how it affects the digester, but obviously quantity is important. And that group has helped you guys kind of get the volumes that you've needed, and because I know in the early days of when we were working with you and there was other sites, it was always kind of questionable if the right quantity was. Is that still a thing, or has the Cornerstone group kind of helped mitigate some of that risk? Or
absolutely, it has.
Okay.
It really has. We saw that trend. Like when we first got going, it was mixed digestion, and I remember talking to financial, trying to get backing for finance for this project, and it's fairly new, and we want to have contracts locked up. Can you get us waste contracts locked up? And you remember talking to the waste suppliers of the day, and it's, you got an AD facility. That's interesting. Very cool. Cool. Let's talk. All right. Well, can I get a contract from you guys?
Right.
No.
I remember telling people that they were often as slippery as the product they were dealing with.
Absolutely.
Right?
So they wouldn't even talk to you until you had the digester. Then you get something built, and it's like, okay, I'm open for business. Let's bring me some stuff. It doesn't show up. It takes a long time to develop those relationships with those waste companies. And one digester facility, depending on your permitting, I mean, some of these plants are 10,000 tons of waste in a year or more. Right. And how are you going to? One guy can't take all that waste.
Right.
And they're not interested in just talking to Joe Blow, one facility there.
Because for them, it's about dealing with a risk, right? And so if you're a bigger pool, I would imagine that would give them more comfort or confidence that that you guys can manage that risk on their behalf from it's not a supply, it's a how do they get rid of their product. If it's one person and your digester's down, they got an issue. If it's a group, they have more. Is that's the value that you've been able to bring to them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They want their a great environmental solution for their waste. But in the end of the day, if you're making pencils, your business is making pencils.
Right.
You're not worried about the shavings.
Right.
As long as they disappear and don't stop my process from working, get that system going. So if you can give that to them, that's a great, strong relationship that's not going anywhere. Right?
And so you talked a bit about quality. Have there been other kind of lessons learned along that feedstock journey? You mentioned kind of high protein stuff. Any other kind of stories of, oh shoot, we did this, or oh, that doesn't work well with that? I mean, as you've been taking, because you must take a variety of different stuff, right?
Yeah. It's that balancing act, analyzing the waste, knowing what it is, where the potential is, and spreading that out has been the biggest lesson.
Okay. What about contaminants? Like, have you gone through? So you said 2013 for the. Do you have two digesters now?
Yeah, we have two vessels.
Okay.
Two digesters.
And they run in series with each other? Okay.
Well, we have options.
We have options.
It's designed to run into series, but I've designed it so that I can shut one down, do a clean out, and I'm going to be less production, but I won't be down.
Okay. And have you done that a couple times over the last
years?
Yeah,
we've had a couple clean outs and a couple. It's been a learning curve mixing designs, and I mean, everybody has the best intents when they're designing it.
Sure.
And then what you need is a track record to prove what you want. And
right.
I'm very glad in the way that we started with a 250 kilowatt and with the fit contracts and a 2100 cubic meter tank. Some guys did 500 right off the get-go.
Right.
And you had 2 vessels. Well, I kind of like the way it worked out for us because you learned what worked and what didn't, and what you did like and what you didn't like. And then the next time it's like, nope, I'm changing this.
Okay,
I don't like
good.
that mixer. I want this mixer. I want that. I want this beefed up here, and better insulation or better heating system, right? Because it just didn't quite work.
Yeah,
well.
perfect.
So
Okay, cool.
Fix the problems and then go. And
So it sounds like there was a whole list of kind of improvements you had, or requests or suggestions from the first project to the second. Like, what was how many years were you operating before you went to the second? Four. Okay, so you had a lot of operating history. Yeah. Okay. And the biggest was around mixing
and heating.
Oh, really? Okay. Because I remember the first one, I think the heating was in the walls of the tank.
Yep.
Is that the same approach on the other one?
Same, but mounted on the inside.
Oh,
so
okay.
The heat lines were bigger and stainless.
Oh, so they're inside the digester. Yeah, okay.
Engineered, beefed up.
Okay.
And part of it, I mean, it's learning how. It's all you're heating a vessel. It's throughput minus environmental temperature outside, right? And
Yeah.
you know, a lot of the technology was coming from Europe.
Right.
And which is great, but then now you're operating in Canada. We get minus 20 in the winter, right? And Europe, they might get minus 5.
Right. Yeah.
That's cold.
Yeah.
Whereas we can go for a month and a half at minus 20. Well, this thing has to work.
Yes.
So we were the first few years you would lose temperature, and then you're in we'll call it the spiral of death.
Yeah.
For a digester. If you lose temperature, then you've got less gas. Your engine can't run, so the engine doesn't run. It doesn't heat it. And spiral of death.
Wow. Okay.
So that's
yeah.
And lots of other digesters, same stories.
Yeah.
Stories,
yeah. No. And that's why we do this podcast, is because those lessons learned are so valuable for the market, right? Like,
absolutely.
you know, and it's gray hair and sleepless nights for you, but you know, we're grateful that you're willing to share, because it's good for everybody else to know. Okay, we got some lessons to learn, and the market will mature and get better, right? So, no, that's great. So you now have the 2 digesters. You have, I guess, 2 engines, then 250 kilo. Okay, and 2 separate fit contracts, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So then you had to do 2 interconnection agreements as well, and everything is basically. Are they on the same site as the original ones?
Yep,
Is it all?
same site. So yeah, there's a few things. One of the things too was your 250. You ended up with a higher price, and then if you did a growth, it's like a separate contract. So you still ended up with that 250 price. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a nice bonus.
Yeah.
Out of it, but then the risk of it was we didn't know whether we'd get another fit contract. So if you remember, there was all those rounds of change in the game.
Yes, right.
And how to play the game to get the fit contracts, because biogas was in the same playing field as solar and wind.
Right.
So those guys were very good at doing the paperwork to match the game being played. Priority points,
that's right.
co-ops and all that stuff. So we failed 4 times.
Really?
3 times.
Okay.
And on the 4th one, we finally got it hit, so we were able to expand at that point.
Okay. And I remember there was a line, I think, through your field. Was it overhead electrical line?
Yep.
Could you piggyback on that one for the other? Okay, good. Okay. So
we had to do transfer trip, which was more expensive.
Yeah. Okay.
But actually, it ended up. Yeah, it was better anyways, because then you could actually turn down some of your sensitivity settings on your SEL and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So
cool.
It worked out for the better.
Yeah. Okay,
It's
good.
a good learning experience.
And so in 2017, 2018 is when the next one comes online?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got now 7 years of kind of operating, or almost 7 years, and you know, uptime has been good. I mean, it's been hitting your expectations from an operational perspective?
Yeah, not too bad.
Okay.
You could always see it more consistent,
sure.
More steady, but I would say probably 80% fill on our contract.
Oh, good. Okay.
On a regular basis.
Yeah.
So it's always a finicky thing, right? Like if you've got lots of gas production, then you're having engine issues where it's like,
okay.
This doesn't work, that doesn't work. It's a rebuild time, and then the next time you'll have engines are great, but then there's a hiccup in the supply chain.
The two have to work together. Yeah, right.
Yep.
So what about from an operating perspective? Like, a 250 cow dairy operation, it requires a lot of work, and like so does the digester, I think. Like, how do you guys do you take care of it? Do you have somebody who takes care of it? Like, how do you manage that in the broader kind of farm operation from an operations?
Usually it's kind of between my father and I there. The upper management that manage the daily stuff on the digester.
Still,
I'm kind of the main one, but My father knows how to run the thing
Okay.
too there for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But on a
So is
daily
it
basis,
a couple
it's
hours
not-
a day, or
Yeah, at the
Okay,
most.
at the most. Okay.
But then it's kind of like it's like I compare it to a silo unloader or something on your farm that you need every single day. If it's working every day, it's simple.
Right,
If it breaks,
right.
all hands on deck there.
Yeah,
and
okay.
You're gonna get dirty.
Is most of your feed? I remember you had a dry feeder originally, but is most of your feed liquid feed now?
It's a mix between
Oh, it is
the
still a
two.
mix.
It's about
Okay.
50-50
Yeah,
there. So
okay,
I
okay.
value that dry feeder. That's
Okay.
a key.
Is it? Okay,
I think
okay.
it's a very good device.
Okay.
You can spend a lot of energy. A lot of the waste material out there is semi-solid or a solid material.
Okay.
So by using a dry feeder, the two solutions, either a dry feeder, which will actually push the physical dry material into the digester, into the pool, or liquefying it and pumping it in.
Right.
Liquefying it obviously takes energy, a
Yeah,
lot of energy
yeah,
to mix,
yeah.
right? Whereas if you just plunk it in,
Yeah.
it's into this big bath,
Yeah.
and it's kind of doing its own mixing.
Right,
So
yeah.
I like
Okay,
that.
okay.
Well, some guy, it's
Yeah.
a preference, but
Because I mean, it is a bunch of motors and stuff that can also fail, right? You know, but
absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that. And then it's coming back to me now as we're talking. You were doing separated solids. Are you still? And I think you were even doing bedding under the cow, right?
Yes,
Are you
that's
still
correct.
doing that?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Wow.
So that's been a big cost saving. So everything that leaves the digester runs through a screw press.
Yeah.
And then where the liquids go off to the lagoon for spreading fertilizer, and then the solids we're using in our livestock operation as bedding material.
Wow. Okay. And
so
before it
everywhere.
was straw, right? Like you were.
Yep, we were straw before, and
Yeah.
at the start we were pretty leery about that
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
it's a bacterial
Rightly
standpoint.
so, yeah.
Like you take manure, and we'll call it manure, but digester.
Yeah.
It's manure,
Yeah.
and then you heat it up and you press it out into a dry material. Well, grade 5 math class, you take the water out of something, or science class, take the water out of something, then add water back to it. What do you got?
Right.
Back to manure. So
Yeah,
putting that
yeah.
under the cows as a bedding.
Yeah.
I was worried about my somatic cell counts,
Sure.
and milk quality, but
Right.
it's been phenomenal.
Really?
It's
Wow.
been really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got
savings.
10 years of operating data to indicate
Yep,
that. Like,
yep.
yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
And no other steps, because I know some folks would dry it even further, but you're not doing that. You're just.
No, well, we've done a few things like blowing fans and certain
Okay,
areas
okay.
and stuff, trying to
Yeah.
drop that down. We should probably look at there's bigger and better
Yeah.
separating systems now.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that one works.
Yeah.
Still plugging away, so
Wow,
we're
wow.
all right with it. But
Cool.
yeah.
And
And things
then-
like covering the building that it receives in.
Right. Okay.
Things like that. So.
And then what about? So then the liquid you said goes to the lagoon. Have you seen? I know there was always talk about benefits from a nutrient perspective and an uptake to the crop. Have you seen those benefits, or hard to quantify, or?
All day long.
Really?
It's a different product than manure.
Okay.
So there's a bit of a learning curve on how best to use that in your cropping operation. But as for our land base, it's very value added
Okay.
on the fertilizer. That
Okay.
stuff, you grow crops, really good crops with digestate.
Really? Okay.
Manure's
Okay.
always been a good, like,
Yeah, yeah.
manure is a good thing. If you're handling it right, it's an awesome asset.
Yeah.
This thing makes it that much
Really?
better. It
So-
grows, especially on a growing crop. So like what everybody says is like a hay crop
Yeah.
or something, corn
Yeah.
that you're taking for silage. The yield on it is just
Really?
insane.
Okay. Wow.
So we really we've gotten into doing green covering. So a lot of our we'll do after corn silage we'll plant a wheat rye crop.
Okay.
Rye crop.
Okay.
So you plant it in the fall, it starts growing, then you spread manure on it. So it's right on the green.
Okay.
And in the spring, about the first thing that happens, it comes alive. We go and spread digestate on it. Bang! The stuff's like on steroids. It's just
Wow. That's
so, and you're getting a lot more use out of your nitrogens and stuff like
Yeah.
that because that plant can grab it. It's a
Okay.
growing crop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
wow.
yeah.
That's really cool. And so have you been? Maybe you weren't buying synthetic fertilizer, but
Yeah, no, we were
you were,
before.
and you're buying less now,
Oh,
or
a lot less.
really?
A lot
Okay,
less.
great.
Almost,
Okay.
We're almost to the point where we don't need to
Really?
buy anything.
Oh, that's
But
amazing.
it's balancing out. How many acres do you have?
Yeah,
Trying
of
to make
course.
You get
Right.
most use out of that digestate
Right.
that you can. So
Yeah.
yeah, depends
Okay.
on the crop, but
Okay.
severely reduced.
Yeah,
It always was, but now
Yeah.
it's pretty much to nothing. So
Well, because when we were talking, and you had always heard those stories from Europe and stuff, but to hear now 10 years later that what we were talking about was actually real, and you're seeing it front and center, both on the bedding side and the digestate. That's great to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
there's definitely a value
Yeah,
there in
okay.
digester. And some of it is like we've done lots of analyzing of the digestate and what
Okay.
it is, and there's something about it that any digester operator that
Yeah.
has land base,
Yeah.
like this stuff works.
Okay. Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
One of the questions I like to ask as we kind of wrap up is, if you could do the project or the two projects kind of over again, I mean, you mentioned some things technically. Are there any other things that you would do differently if you could go back in time and do it over again?
That's a good question. No, I've been, a lot of it's just technical learning
Yeah, yeah.
on this and that. Which engine's the better engine?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
debatable.
Sure it is, yeah.
Kind of like driving a Chevy or a
Ford, yeah.
or a Ford. There,
Yeah.
those kind of arguments.
Yeah.
I think most of the guy. It comes down to serviceability, right?
Yeah.
And finding
How much service do you do yourself on the engine?
I do my oil changes,
Okay.
the daily stuff, that
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
thing. But any kind of like a 2,000-hour rebuild,
Okay. You bring somebody in.
we got guys that do that.
Yeah.
So I've always based my decisions, even agriculturally, on my farm operation, on equipment, on serviceability. Less about what color
Yeah.
the product is,
Okay,
what brand
okay.
it is. Do you have a good service company that's
Right.
going to take care of you?
Yeah,
Because
right.
when a digester engine blows up, or how it's downtime, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
We've had guys in our group that the engines have blown up.
Yeah.
And it's it can be an 8-month turnaround for a new one. So
Yeah.
you have zero income for 8 months. Or mixers for your digester.
Yeah.
If you have a good supplier that has the stuff sitting on the shelf,
Right.
that's committed for service,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
all the difference in
Yeah.
the world. Because if you can get back up and running,
Yeah.
that's key.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a theme I try to drive home a lot, and I think people, particularly who are developing projects, for the first time or aren't as experienced, kind of minimize the impact of uptime, and everybody looks at, well, what's the first cost, what's the capital cost, right? But you can compromise on capital cost and then pay for it in low uptime, right? Or the other way around, you can pay a bit more at the beginning, or to your point, find a good service partner who might actually be a little bit more money along the way. But if you go from if you lose out on 8 months in a year, your year's lost, right? Like that uptime is so valuable. I think a lot of people don't really see the significance of it. So I'm glad you drew that out.
If you think about it on an engine basis, 250 kilowatts, that's $1,000 a day revenue. So
Yeah, right.
it doesn't take many
Yeah,
days
yeah.
to get kind of painful.
That might be
right?
something I should do better. Is kind of denominated in a really like dollars per day. Maybe that would allow get people to, because you look at all these spreadsheets and you look at all these pro formas and you get a bit numb to it. But when you go, no, it's $1,000 a day. Like, would you like to have $1,000 a day? Yeah, I would, right? So yeah,
Well, some of the with Cornerstone, that was one of the things too. Is we brought on a microbiologist to help with the biology on all the operations,
Okay.
keep us work on our compliance side of it, because there's some government rules about testing and
Yeah.
for feedstocks and things like that. So she takes care of that, but she's also on a monthly basis. She comes out to the farm, grabbing digester
Okay.
samples,
Okay.
analyzing them, and then what's interesting is that she does that for 10 sites. So the database of information that we have
That's great.
is awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
Some of it leads to more questions than answers.
Sure,
but
sure.
Because one thing will work at one. You can have a digester in one place that can handle very high ammonia
Okay.
and operate and still rock, right? Where
Yeah.
that should be impeding your gas production.
Right.
It doesn't.
Uh-huh.
Other places do, but that all comes back to uptime,
Yeah,
right?
totally,
So
yeah.
she's been able to head off, just that second set of eyes has been able to head off a few, hey,
Right.
your thing's starting to get a little overfed. I think you should slow it down.
Right.
Whereas sometimes people would kind of, oh no, I'll keep pushing, and then you get the big crash.
Yeah.
Everything drives uptime.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So maybe the last question I'll ask you is, other people who might be thinking about a project like this, or other types of biogas, or big projects, any kind of words of wisdom to them as they, if they're early on or in construction or whatever, some words of wisdom based on your experience?
Yeah, it's obviously educating yourself.
Okay,
and
yeah.
Finding a good team that's going to help you.
Yeah,
That serviceability,
yeah.
whether it's doing whether it's engineering on the paperwork, on the application side of it, designing that kind of
Yeah.
thing, and then you want to align yourself with companies
Yeah.
that are going to be here for
Right.
the long
haul.
right?
Yeah.
Which is sometimes hard to figure out.
Yeah.
But tried, tested, and true. They're
Yeah.
going to be there. If they're going to be there, that's key.
Yeah.
That drives everything. And it's. I think there's a lot of opportunity for biogas in Canada, well, the world really.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm on the agricultural front, and I think that there's a huge potential. But
Yeah, that's cool. I think, did we did we take a trip or before you were making your final decision? Did we go to Eastern Ontario? Did we go to the to Ledgecroft, to the other Greens farm? Was that with you guys?
I think yes.
So I remember Ben Green, no relation, said to me on that trip. He said, "Matt, how's business?" And he already had a digester, and I could never. And I said to, I probably told you the story. And he says, I said to him, like, Ben, if you don't mind me asking, why do you care? Right? You've already got your digest. He says, Matt, I need you to stay in business because I need you to continue to support me. And it's just like the light bulb went on. It's like, oh yeah, of course, right?
Yeah.
And that was, it wasn't intuitive to me, but then he said, it's like, oh yeah, our company continuing to succeed is essential to, supporting, the projects that we've built and keeping the uptime, right? So yeah, that serviceability is key. So, well, Dave, this has been great. I really appreciate it. For your first podcast, you've knocked it out of the park, and appreciate the update on the project and your time. And for our listeners or our viewers, thanks again for tuning in. This is Value of Biogas East, and this has been Dave Green, Green Home Farms. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.